From the Dallas On Air studios in beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Fulfillment here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your hosts, the Vegabomber PJ Dunn and the film samurai Carlos Salinas.
Hey.
What is going on, Mr. Film Samurai? We are doing it. Hello. Welcome and double welcome and triple welcome to everyone who's joining us this morning. We are going to tell you a little bit about movies, but today we're also going to talk about soundtracks, and we're going to tell you about the best movie soundtracks as well. And so we need some good news, right? There's been a lot of depressing news. There's been a lot of realities that have been coming to the forefront that need to be dealt with. But at the same time, we also have to try to find some fun in some of this. So what do you think? I mean, it's summer blockbuster. Summer is this. It's right. Loud shirts, right?
Carlos, check the back of that mic.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me now as we look at this. So we're talking about summer blockbusters. And with summer blockbusters, there's some that I'm going to just go ahead and give the disclaimer on right now because there's so many of them and we've talked about certain of them on certain aspects of the show. I might not have some of the ones that you might be thinking, well, why didn't he mention that one when we talk about summer blockbusters? Because some of them are going to be fairly easy. And if you watch some of the older episodes, you will see that I know that Empire Strikes Back is an excellent summer movie. I know that Ghostbusters and Dark Knight and others are. But summer blockbuster, if we're talking about that for just a second, Carlos, what is a summer blockbuster? How do you define it?
Big, crazy movie that you got to wait in line for.
Carlos, I'm having a little trouble picking up. Hang on 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think how we define summer blockbuster is going to be super important. So these aren't just movies that are released in the summer, although that's one aspect. But really what we're talking about here is blockbuster part of the summer. So summer's the time that it comes out, but the blockbuster itself. And so again, Carlos, tell me about this.
The first thing I think of when I think blockbuster is Steven Spielberg, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came out with some of the biggest summer blockbusters, and we'll talk about them later. But Michael Bay, James Cameron, those are blockbuster filmmakers. They like to just make the screen filled with action just it's popcorn movie. You get your popcorn, your big soda, just sit back, relax, and enjoy.
I think that's right. That's exactly right. What about you, Zach? What do you think of when you think of summer blockbuster?
It's the spectacle. It is the reason why you go to a theater to go watch a movie, because it's something huge sound or huge visual or just something bigger than life that you're not going to see anywhere else but on a movie screen in a theater. You want that overwhelming, just powerful, not necessarily great movie, but fun to watch. No, it's not a film; it's a movie. Yeah.
Yes,
and it's just something that, like I said, it's something that you get to be overwhelmed by. Something larger than life, on just a lazy summer day that you got nothing else to do but sitting in a movie theater for 2.5 hours and just enjoy a friggin' movie.
That's exactly
and
right.
If it has a monster in it, it's even better. Or a giant robot.
They're giant robots fighting monsters. Huh? Yeah. Remember Pacific Rim?
That's exactly right. And it needs to have a sequel, and then a sequel after that sequel, and a sequel after that sequel.
Yeah, blockbuster usually has like 10 sequels.
Yeah, when I think of the summer blockbuster, I always think of escape.
Yeah.
This should be the movie that's made for you just to escape. It's not trying to be political. It's not trying to be any of these other things. It's just trying to take you into a whole nother world, and then you get introduced to some different characters and a problem, and then you just want to see the big finish. And I think that's kind of what I think of when I think of the summer blockbuster. Well, if you're tuning in to Fulfillment for the first time today, we have a couple of segments, and usually our first segment is called Just Seen It, and this is where we talk about the latest TV shows or movies that we have seen. And in this case, since the movie theaters are kind of shut down at the moment, then it's mostly probably going to be things that we've watched on Netflix or any of the streaming services. So as is our custom, we always start with the film Samurai. What have you seen, Carlos?
All right, let's do it. Actually, all three movies that I've seen that I'll talk about, they're all 2020 movies. But
really,
I haven't seen them. They're not in theaters, but they are 2020 films that were released this year. The first one we'll talk about is called The Last Days of American Crime. This is a Netflix original, I believe.
Okay.
The director is Olivier Megaton, and you might know him from Columbiana. He did the Taken 3, Transporter 3. He always ends up doing the third and worst in the series.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. It stars Edgar Ramirez, Michael Pitt, and Anna Brewster. And here's the plot. In the not-too-distant future, as a final response to terrorism and crime, the U.S. government plans to broadcast a signal making it impossible for anyone to knowingly commit unlawful acts. So this is kind of a heist movie. These guys, Edgar Ramirez is recruited by a character played by Michael Pitt. They're going to take several $100 million out of a treasury. You know how the treasury, when they make new bills, they got to get the old bills and destroy them. Well, they plan for a big heist, and they're gonna figure out a way to delay the signal enough to where they can get this heist done and then get out. It's big, dumb action. It's very slow. It's very long. It's like 2.5 hours. It takes forever for it to get going, but when it does, the final third act, oh my God, it's violent as heck. And this is one of those movies that's not afraid to offend the delicate sensibilities of the average moviegoer, man. There's bloody violence, there's sex scenes, there's nudity, and it's way out there. It's a little over the top, but that's why I appreciate it about it. It's one of those old throwbacks to, they won't make movies like this anymore because of Me Too or whatever. Movies are too violent, whatever. But I could appreciate it for what it did for that. Edgar Ramirez is kind of terrible in it. He speaks too low. You can hardly ever understand him, and he has an accent anyway. So maybe watch this movie with subtitles turned on. Michael Pitt chews the scenery like nothing else. This guy, when he first came out, he was in that movie with Ryan Gosling and Sandra Bullock. I think it was called Perfect Murder or something like that.
Okay.
Where they played two kind of serial killers, but they were like high school age kids. And he's always been a very interesting actor, very idiosyncratic. And in this movie, he's balls of the wall, man. He's out there. He's got this long, stringy blonde hair. He wears Gucci clothes, and he's just a very fast-talking type of guy. And he's just Edgar Ramirez is just the opposite of him. He's very quiet, very solid, very macho, whatever. And then there's Anna Brewster, which she's a little smoke show. I liked her a lot in this. But it's okay. If you get bored very easily, you probably tap out after the first 30 minutes or hour.
Okay.
But if you stick with it, I think the payoff is worth it. The second one I saw yesterday was called Becky.
Becky?
Yeah, it's a horror movie. Actually.
Not, oh my God, Becky.
Becky. Not Karen, Becky.
Oh my God, Becky. Look at her butt. It's so
Let me get you the synopsis for this.
That's a horror film, right?
And it's bloody. It's gory.
Kevin James is in it, right?
Kevin James, yeah. A teenager's weekend at a lake house with her father takes a turn for the worse when a group of convicts wreaks havoc on their lives. And stars Lulu Wilson. She's the lead, and I looked up her other movies, and it seems like she's been in nothing but horror movies and kind of small, low budget stuff. But she's good in this.
There's something scary about that.
Yeah. Kevin James is very convincing as this white supremacist. He's got this huge swastika tattoo on the back of his neck. He's got this very thick beard, and then he's got these dumbasses with him. And one is this gentle. He's not a gentle giant. He's just a giant. And I'm not going to mention one particular scene because it's going to disturb a lot of people. But yeah, it was decent, a decent watch. Like I said, if you like the kind of movies that have like interesting kills, and things, if like the special effects of the gore and people get stabbed and shot and so forth, and it's one of those kind of movies where it's decent. And then of course I saw The Five Bloods.
This is one I wanted to see, but I haven't seen yet.
The Five Bloods.
The Five Bloods. Yeah. Chadwick Boseman, right?
Yes. Well, he's not the lead. He's in the movie, and he has a significant part. But I'm gonna, if you watch the movie, you'll see that Delroy Lindo is the standout here.
Yeah.
He has the most interesting role, although his character is not. He's not a likable character, for one thing. And they even get into the MAGA, Make America Great Again. He's actually one of these guys that supported Trump, when he's got a MAGA hat and everything. But it's Spike Lee doing his a Vietnam movie, basically. The basic plot is these guys, they were there in Vietnam, and they found a case of gold that was supposed to be delivered to the South Vietnamese to fund the army against the North Vietnamese and so forth. But they took it upon themselves, we are owed this, should be ours.
Yeah.
And so they buried it, and throughout the movie, there's almost kind of a documentary style in some parts. The tone is all over the place. It gets very serious at times. Other times it's kind of slapsticky. Spike Lee does have a sense of humor, so there's humor in it. There's some great scenes in it, and then there's some really just cringy-worthy scenes where the dialogue is terrible. They have a crew of like 3 French people that their job is to go out and look for mines, because there's still mines all over Vietnam.
Sure.
Kids are stepping on them and getting their.
I learned that in the movie Tropic Thunder.
Yes. And these, I don't know where they found these French actors, or maybe it was just the lines they gave them, but they were terrible. And it kind of took me out of the movie every time they were on and talking. They were just very amateurish, to me. And the girl her name is Thierry. Her last name is Thierry. She's been in some stuff, but this movie didn't do her justice. I mean, it was just the stuff they gave her to say was just real cliche, And of course, there's some political stuff, and they argue and stuff. The thing I liked about it was the music. They used almost every classic Marvin Gaye song. Of course, What's Going On. Although they did kind of like an a cappella version of that one. But that song, Inner City Blues, opens with that. And there's footage of the black soldier in Vietnam and Nixon and the riots in Chicago, the guys that the monks that self-immolated themselves on the street. That famous shot of the guy just shooting the prisoner right in the forehead. And he just falls down. All that stuff, and it's like, God, I'd love to see a Spike Lee do a proper documentary on the black soldier in Vietnam, and I know you probably relate to it because your dad was there.
Yeah.
And there was some great scenes. And then they used that song "Got to Give It Up" in the scene where they're in modern day Vietnam and they're in a club, and there's a DJ, and on the back in big neon letters, "Apocalypse Now." And they're doing that song "Got to Give It Up," and they're in there's 4 Bloods there because one is gone. But,
sure.
So they're dancing. It's a fun scene. There's some like I said, there's some really good stuff, and then there's some really yeah. It could have been a lot better. And I wish it was, but I love Spike Lee movies. Yeah. All his movies I get into. 25th Hour is one of my favorites. Of course, Malcolm X.
Yeah.
But this one was. Yeah, a little hit and miss in places. But
that's kind of Spike Lee.
It's worth a watch.
So weird,
definitely.
Yeah, he's kind of so uneven, and at some points
that
was what was a charm about him. But then at some point, now that there's so many more movies that have come out, you kind of hope to see Spike get better. But it seems like he's kind of still riding that same wave that he rode when he was doing the good stuff.
Black Klansman, everybody raved about it, but I didn't think it was that good. It was okay, but nothing really profound or anything about it.
Absolutely. Hey,
especially if you know the history behind that story.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. How about you, K-Zach?
All right, so I got a couple recommendations for you this week. The first had its world premiere on Shudder this week on Joe Bob's Last Drive-In. It is a anthology film called Scare Package. Now,
Scare Package.
Scare Package.
Okay.
Not care package.
Not care
Scare package.
Now, okay. So first of all, it's the dreaded anthology horror film. You know, this one has nine different stories and 7 different directors, and basically just little segments and just one after the other. And the working tagline is 7 directors, 7 tales of terror, 0 working cell phones. So I don't think comedy horror gets the due it deserves. It really doesn't. A lot of people hate it, and the anthology
terrible.
And the anthology film exactly, and the anthology film again, you know, with no consistency and no storyline. Basically, everyone gets 10 minutes to do their thing, and this is just right up there with them. Some of the segments are hits, some of the segments are misses. This one, you know, this one really just kind of attacks the tropes perfectly.
Okay.
Just to give you an inkling, the movie opens
Kind of a theme.
with the guy who kind of wanders in and, you know, sets up everything. It goes terribly.
Yeah.
Having a sparring contest with the cop who shoots everyone in the shoulder.
Okay.
So, and then it just sets up the movie from there, because you're basically seeing all these other horror tropes being set up by this one guy.
Yeah.
So, and that's the start of it, and then the whole thing is framed by a couple of guys in a video store. So and it's just a weird wraparound story. But like I said, it has some hits, it had some misses. But because I like comedy horror, because it's played for laughs. The gore is fantastic. Some of the kills are fantastic, but it's just fun. And parts of it are just fun. Some of it is not so great. Some of it doesn't make sense. Not gonna lie, some of it doesn't make sense. But all in all, it's not terrible, particularly if you like comedy horror. I mean, as you know, because I mean, you know, you have stuff that can be good. You know, like VHS, you know, has hits and misses. Creepshow has hits and misses. This is another one of those. You know, it doesn't hit on every cylinder, but it's fun to watch.
So yeah, it's like the Spike Lee film you saw, hit or misses.
Exactly.
Hit and misses.
Right. The second one that I'll throw at you is a documentary series, and again, it's on the WW Network, so it is, you know, might be not easy to find if you don't subscribe to it, but it is a documentary series called Undertaker: The Last Ride, and what it is it's focusing on the character the character of the Undertaker, but the wrestler behind him, Mark Calloway, who's basically been trying for the last 3 years to wind up a 30-plus year career in a wrestling ring. And so it basically takes a look at everything, warts and all, you know, his recovery, his rehab, his surgeries, his relationship with his family, everything that this guy has been going through in the last 3 years to wind up his career. It's an athlete. It basically is the story of an athlete who just can't let it go. Even though, you know, his body, you know, you're walking through a hip replacement. He's talking about everything the guy's had done: hip replacements, knee surgeries, broken pretty much every bone in his body. Just basically, this guy is pretty much physically destroyed, but he keeps on coming back year after year because he can't let it go, because he can't let it go in his own terms. He hasn't found the end, and it's the story of that athlete.
Gotcha.
You know, who's the character is one of the greatest of all time. The guy himself is one of the best wrestlers of all time. But like I said, he's that one guy who, when you're the greatest of all time, you don't know when to hang it up.
Sure.
And that's really, you know, almost a fairly tragic story. But by the same token, it's an amazing, it's redemption and hurt, and just you see this doubt in the guy's mind. The guy who's been built as an indestructible force on screen is really just kind of a wounded, hurt guy at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it you know, if you watch The Wrestler, you see those guys who can't hang it up. This is a story about a guy who really can't hang it up because of who he is, because of his work ethic, because of his nature, and because he's just that guy who's been built as nigh indestructible, but he's purely a human being at the end of it, and is really just almost heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating because, like with the Michael Jordan documentary and things like that, this is one of those stories about that athlete who just can't let it go because you're the best at what you do.
It's true. We're watching it right now, play out live with Tom Brady. That guy is just going to be a couple more hits away from being. I mean, he's been playing for a long time. He's in his 40s now, still trying to play quarterback at that level. He's got he's been in 9 Super Bowls. He's won 6 of them. He's done everything he's needed to do. And now you can, in a violent sport like football, and these guys are bigger and faster and younger, and you're just trying to sit back in a pocket. The thing I don't want to see is him just getting blindsided
Just
one good
go
time.
out, stretcher,
Yeah, you just don't want to see that,
Right, like Aikman and 20 concussions later.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right? Well, I actually have seen just one movie that I can talk about. There's some others I want to see, and I think thanks to Carlos, I've had a chance to understand. But this is a PSA I'm about to do now for you. Never, ever watch The Night Clerk. Ever.
Never watched the what?
The Night Clerk. The film that I saw it on Netflix, was called The Night Clerk. Now, The Night Clerk stars John Leguizamo, who I like.
Wait a minute. This is the one with Ana de Armas, right?
Yes, has Ana de Armas in it.
I watch it only because of her.
Yes, and she's great in it. And Helen Hunt's in this. And the gentleman, Ty Sheridan, who you know from the movie Ready Player One.
Yeah.
So you have an all-star cast here. You have a pretty good premise. The premise of Night Clerk is it's a guy that has high-functioning Asperger's, and what he does is he studies people. And so he works inside, and he's a clerk at a hotel.
Like a business hotel.
Mm-hmm, at a business hotel. And so what he does is, in order to learn people and understand how to do interactions, he films or records and watches people that stay in the rooms. Well, one particular time he gets to witness something really bad that happens and someone dies, and John Leguizamo is the cop that's supposed to come in and try to piece together. Leguizamo. Thank you very much. Yes, Leguizamo, right? And so I get into it.
He's always good. I love
I love him.
He's great.
And in this one, he's not funny because we know him as a comedian, but also as a good actor. So he's playing the detective who's trying to decide this kid, what he has can incriminate him, but is he a criminal that's accomplice to this? Is he just a weirdo, or is he an unsung hero in some kind of way because he has the one footage that could put this one guy away who's starting to do this with a lot of different women in a lot of different places? So great premise, great actors, but if you ever want to watch a movie where you can blame it on the director, this is the movie. Even though the actors are great, and even though the actors are doing the best that they can with the stilted dialogue, oh my God. So you would think that this movie would follow John Leguizamo trying to figure out the different little pieces of the puzzle to put it together to solve it at the end. Well, it starts that way. Then it gets lost in a love triangle between, actually not a love triangle, but just it becomes a love story, almost like a rom-com in a sense, but not as funny, between, Ty Sheridan and Ana de Armas, where he's thinking he could actually fall in love with her and she's allowing him to think. And there's all these long close-up shots where you're going, got it, cut. Got it, cut. We get it here. Why is this scene? And there's like this one scene where you're sitting there and it's going on for 8 minutes. And I'm going, director, hey, we got it. Can you move on to the next scene?
But then the movie would have only been like 40 minutes long.
Oh, my God. Yes, and so you can't understand why is this movie so boring because Ty Sheridan does a great job of playing someone with high-functioning Asperger, and you're going, wow, he's really got that down. And then watching the sensitivity of Anna here, feeling for him because she had a brother who had Asperger's, and that's why she can kind of connect with him, even though she's fooling around with the guy who's a bad dude who's killing women inside of hotels, right? So it's just, there's some good moments, and Helen Hunt is wasted as the mom. Mm-hmm. She's his mom. Mm-hmm. She has a couple scenes where she freaks out when the cops have to come and all this stuff. And then, of course, John Leguizamo, they forget about him and that there's even a murder.
He disappears for long stretches of the movie.
And you're going, what the hell are y'all doing? So I can't believe that in this day and time, with all the movies out there, that this guy did not understand, this director. I didn't even want to look up his name because I was so pissed off. I don't even want to tell his name. Y'all can Google him if you want to. Okay. But to me, to not understand pacing, to not understand editing and cutting, and to not understand what scenes belong and what scenes don't belong. Like, I could have cut at least 40 minutes out of this movie. and still would have had enough to make this movie be a lot better. So I got to tell you, as someone who watches a lot of film, I was almost pissed off at the end of this movie because there was enough about it that I could like the performances and the concept, but just to see how the execution just fumbled. I mean, have y'all seen a movie kind of like this that's just really
just dull and like you don't know why you're watching it, but because I have minor OCD, I just have to finish a film no matter how bad it is sometimes. Or if it's boring and I'm not connecting with it, I just want to see, okay, well, maybe there's a payoff at the end and it'll be worth it. And sometimes there is, but a lot of times, just isn't.
No, I ran into that last year with Brightburn. Brightburn had a great concept. It did decent cast, and it just fell apart because of the direction, because of the pacing. It was poorly edited. It was poorly put together. Everything about that part failed. What should have been purely successful. So it was a fun movie ruined by a director that just flat out.
That's it. So if anybody tries to tell you to watch The Night Clerk, don't listen to them.
Unless you're a hardcore Ana de Armas fan.
Yes, like if you like Ana, then just fast forward just to her parts, because you won't miss anything if you look at the rest of the film.
You can find clips of those if you know real life. I'll just say that.
Yes. All right. So, film fanatics, let's get to our main topic of what we're talking about here today. There's that wiki. And that is the most watchable summer blockbuster movies. Now, notice we said watchable. We could also sub in the word enjoyable. But we're not trying to tell you that this has to be the best, because I think that's kind of an arbitrary term anyway at this point. So we're going to tell you what's enjoyable. What could you watch? And with that, let's kick it off to the film Samurai.
All right, let's do it. Blockbusters. Let's do number 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Number 3, 1996. Probably everybody remembers this movie when it came out. The Rock.
Rock.
Bay, Nicolas Cage. Sean Connery playing basically an old James Bond, because he was kind of like a secret agent or special ops guy, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically Ed Harris in this great military performance of this group of guys that take over Alcatraz and put a missile on it, and they're threatening or blackmailing, they want to get $1 billion or whatever, or they're going to release this missile. And it's up to Nicolas Cage, who's an expert in chemical warfare and chemical weapons of mass destruction, like that, right? So
right.
He knows what it's some kind of CS gas, something like that. So this explodes, it's going to kill 1 million people in a 10-mile radius or whatever. So it's really hardcore action. It's some great dialogue. The music is pounding all the time, and there's jets flying over in it towards the end, and Nicolas Cage is just nuts in it.
It is Michael Bay explosion at its best.
Yes. Explosions all galore. Yeah.
Yes.
Great chase scenes in San Francisco. There's some great. The scenery in it is great as well. But yeah, Rock is. This is one of those rare Michael Bay movies that actually they made a Criterion release of it. No. That and Armageddon. So that tells you something. My second one, and this is one of my all-time favorites, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. I love Terminator, the first one. I haven't seen that movie as many times as definitely haven't seen as many times as Terminator 2. Terminator 2 to me is just a perfect action movie, and it's a great story. It's time travel sometimes can get really, but they pretty much simplify it.
Yeah.
And Sarah Connor in this movie, she's ripped, man, and I love her scenes. They really showcased her very well. In the first one, she was kind of this dopey, kind of mopey female damsel in distress, sort of, who Michael Bihn's character was trying to protect from Arnie, who was the Terminator. He was the bad guy. But in this film, he's actually the good guy now. And there's some great action scenes. And then, of course, James Cameron, who's elevating the special effects, comes up with this new Terminator who's basically liquid. He can turn into any object, and he can make his hand a knife. And there's these great chases, and the motorcycle, and the kid. Even the kid, John Connor, is the young John Connor. He's pretty good, although his later career didn't do very well. But this movie is like nonstop from beginning to end, one action. bit after another, and it's fantastic. I love it. Even some of the smaller lines in the movie, the quieter moments, when Terminator asks, why do you cry? And some of those scenes were actually pretty nice, very well done.
Yeah, Linda Hamilton is stellar in that film. Just absolutely just a kick-ass heroine, man.
Yes.
When she goes to get the dice, and the guy who was basically responsible for Skynet, just using the technology of the hand from the first movie that was left over, and a chip, just a piece of a chip. From that, he was able to create all this technology that would eventually become Skynet, that would take over the world and destroy all, basically enslave humanity. And it was a struggle of, okay, could she really kill him? And it leaves a lot of stuff to make you think as well. And then, of course, this movie I've probably seen the most times, and with my family I watch it so many times, but it's the 1975 Steven Spielberg Jaws. And to me, it's a perfect summer blockbuster, especially because it takes place in July, 4th weekend, and on the beach, and a lot of it takes place during the day, It's bright and sunny, but you have these three classic, a trio of characters. Quint, the fisherman, who's going to be hunting this shark that's been feeding off the waters of Amity Island. Hooper, the scientist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and Brody, the great Roy Scheider, who was a New York City cop but got burnt out, decided to move to an island, but he hates the water. There's a great line in it. Yeah, it's only an island if you look at it from the water or something like that. and it has so many classic scenes, and the way Spielberg, he was 29 years old when he made this movie.
Yeah.
And the way he crafted it, the way he built tension, the scares in it, that the head of the shark coming up that first time when he's chumming. I still remember the day when I saw this that summer, when I was a kid. It was literally a blockbuster. They filled the theater. It was that old Inwood theater on Inwood, and there was no seats left. I had to sit on the front row basically, and I remember jumping out of my seat on that front row because there was nobody in front of me, right?
Yeah.
And and then of course that classic scene when they're late at night on the boat and they're drinking, and Quint tells the story of the Indianapolis, and that's just an all-time great scene, and very well performed by the actor.
Yeah.
Jaws, man, it's one of my all-time favorites.
Solid.
I actually just watched it recently because I ordered the 4K edition of it, and then watched the documentary afterward. And the documentary is pretty well done to go into a lot of detail about it.
Nice. Super nice. K-Zach, how about you?
That's what I'm thinking.
All right, so my three choices. The first one I'll go through, you can say what you want about Iron Man, but the film that kind of started the whole superhero craze, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. It is absolutely, it was a superhero movie that you never really saw coming because you knew Spider-Man. But I mean, getting to see it through the vision of Sam Raimi, getting to see, the great build of the city, getting to pick Tobey Maguire, who really is a perfect Peter Parker and a really decent Spider-Man.
I thought so.
But I mean, what I really enjoyed was when they included what was supposed to be test footage in the film was Doc Ock's tentacles coming to life. It's really kind of spectacular to watch this sequence.
That's Spider-Man 2.
Is it Spider-Man 2?
Yeah. Doc Ock is Spider-Man 2 villain.
Okay.
First one was Green Goblin.
Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're good. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, but like I said, these were the films that kind of started the whole thing because you got a really involved superhero story. You've got really vulnerable superhero characters, but like I said, more importantly, you're getting a spectacle. You're getting to see Spider-Man swing through the city. You're getting to see up close fights. You're getting to see this really well put together superhero movie and the power of the superhero movie in a summer theater, because it is a really great place to go and escape for an hour and a half.
Yes.
With these characters, who you could really invest in and really enjoy, even though it's a story that over and over. Had you seen it this way? No. And I think you really kind of have Sam Raimi to thank for getting that whole ball rolling. I mean, because again, you had Michael Keaton, you had Tim Burton's Batman, but then every film tried to be Tim Burton's Batman. And you had Superman, but every film tried to be Superman after that.
Donner's Superman.
But finally you got a superhero movie that played every level to the hilt. You had a great villain in Willem Dafoe, who was a vulnerable villain.
Yes.
You had Tobey Maguire, a great Peter Parker Spider-Man, and you finally had
James Franco.
Yeah, and Kirsten Dunst too.
Yeah.
She's a great Mary Jane. I mean, people don't necessarily like these actors, but all of them work in this film, and that's kind of one of the things about the summer blockbuster is that it may not necessarily be people or things you like, but if it works all together in a film, it's going to work there.
I agree. And to your point about the superhero films, Sam Raimi and those X-Men films got to take advantage of that new thing called CGI, which was they were the first crop of CGI-related superhero films. And you could only do Spider-Man once you got better CGI, because to do the movements and him swinging would be very hard to do with just the regular green screen stuff that they tried to do before. Right. So yeah, that one and the X-Men were the first one of the new superhero films to actually take advantage of CGI, because it finally advanced good enough to where they could do it. But I'm right there with you.
Right. The second film that I chose was a movie that kind of put something together that you really hadn't seen on screen before, or was really well done, and that was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You get a spectacular performance from Bob Hoskins, but more importantly, you get, when you're a kid, you get to see all these cartoon characters you've really enjoyed come to life in front of you and interact with human beings on a really well done level. Because, I mean, this is the days where basically you're looking at a tennis ball or you're looking at some guy in a costume off screen, but every part of it works.
Yes.
Every bit of animation works, and I mean it's still all hand painted cells and animation, and it honestly is just a fun story. Because, I mean, at the end of it all, it's a really great cartoon. Yeah. Bob Hoskins, again, just puts on this tremendous performance as Eddie Valiant. You've got Charles Fleischer's voice as Roger Rabbit, Kathleen Turner as Jessica Rabbit. Just all these great characters kind of come to life, and of course Christopher Lloyd as Judge Doom, a fantastic villain. I mean, say what you will about any of Christopher Lloyd's roles, this one is really at the top of them, just because it's so over the top. And
kind of disturbing too when he takes off his human mask. You see the cartoon version with these big giant eyes. Yeah, and he's like, But that was one of those movies where I was smiling big from beginning to end because of all the characters, and the storytelling was really good too. It's kind of a retake of Chinatown in a way.
Yeah.
But
it's a film noir story.
Just funny. Great.
Yeah, and it's just and it's so rewatchable. It's just so enjoyable, and you can watch it at any age. You can introduce this film to any kid, and he's going to dig it. And like I said, if you were a fan of cartoons, if you were a fan of detective stories, if you were just a fan of watching a well-paced movie, it really does get put well together. It's hard to resist and enjoy. The third one that I chose is possibly one of the most quotable movies of all time, and that is Ghostbusters.
Yep.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Ivan Reitman at the height of his powers. You can't go wrong with an ensemble cast. I mean, everyone in this film puts in their two bits. I mean, Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, Aykroyd as Ray Stantz, and of course Harold Ramis as Egon Spengler, and of course the shortchanged Ernie Hudson, as Winston said more, just because it was supposed to be Eddie Murphy. They couldn't make it happen, so they kind of made him an add-on, which is an unfortunate part of it, because he had a chance to be very, very funny. But still, Ghostbusters really is a spectacle on screen. Because I mean, you're seeing things that you haven't seen before. You're seeing the ghost attacks, and you're seeing the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You're seeing all of it put together in just a really almost improv version of a really spectacular special effects film. And Ivan Reitman again just puts everything together in this ensemble movie that it's so strong all the way through. You enjoy it all the way through, and for years and years and years it stays the test of time, because not only is it a classic ghost story in a supernatural film, but it's also a really, really funny comedy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And I think they had a hard time trying to. Can you imagine trying to sell that? So it's a psychological, supernatural kind of horror. Right? Can you imagine that pitch meeting trying to pitch that? And you know they were going,
And it's
what?
a comedy too. What?
And it's a comedy. It's going to make people
A
laugh.
horror movie or a comedy?
Are you kidding me?
But this is Ivan Reitman coming right off of stuff, like Stripes and
Stripes.
Bill Murray, coming out of,
Animal House.
Saturday Night Live, and it's, everyone that they got to make this
Everything
film.
clicked. That was the cultural event at that time.
It
Yeah.
sure
The
was.
song was on the radio.
The
all
merchandising,
time.
the merchandising on it,
Toys. And, yep.
Ray Parker Jr.'s song, Bustin' Makes Me Feel Good.
and Sigourney Weaver taking a turn from doing Ripley into this independent woman who becomes a sex bot, and she really does kind of boil off the screen in some of those scenes, man.
She
Long
does.
legs.
She does. Well, I've got 3, 2, and you gave me actually a great segue, and I'm going to do the 3, 2, 1 on summer blockbusters. And at number 3, I've got Alien. Now, I love this film because, again, this is not supposed to work. It's a science fiction horror film, but put in space, if you will. And then you have the lead ended up being a woman, which is the first time in 1979, by the way, that the black guy wasn't the first guy that died, or the woman had to run and be falling down. Someone had to come and pick her up from the big bad monster. No, the woman actually kicked the monster's tail. So this is in 1979. What this film does is it does a whole bunch of things. It gets us ready for the 1980s. To me, this is if the 70s were going to end strong, this is the best way to end strong because this movie came out in December of 79. So I love the fact that when you look at the 70s and the 80s movies, you could debate back and forth which ones was the greater era of movies.
70s.
Right? And I would probably go 70s for sure, right? I'm going to be biased on that. But in this film, I loved it. I love Sigourney Weaver in this one. And I love the design of the creatures, the xenomorph, right? It was great. And who can't remember the chest popping out piece and then the robots and androids. I mean, it was just, man.
And I think
So
you can
good.
argue the 70s for drama. I think you can argue the 80s for comedy. And this is a huge drama, man.
Yeah. No, it's and Alien. I mean, when you think about that, this is Ridley Scott that we're talking about, and this is a screenplay that was written by Dan O'Banion, and so. The idea of them trying to go sell this, hey, we want to put a horror film up in space. And you imagine at the time, everybody would have been saying, no, dude, if it ain't Star Wars or Space, Odyssey or something like that, I don't see how this could work. And sure enough, here we go. And then the acting, Sigourney Weaver, if you didn't hear of her before, you knew who she was after this movie, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, what did you think?
She had a
Carlos,
screen presence for sure in that movie. And, the ensemble cast, Yaphet Kotto,
Tom Skerritt, Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah, and they
John
gave
Hurt.
They're all wearing like Harry Dean Stanton's character. He's wearing like a Hawaiian shirt and a baseball cap, and of course the cat. The way he built tension in this movie, and you hardly ever saw the alien until halfway through the movie practically.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. A thing that when it bleeds, it's acid, and its teeth will just drive a hole into your head.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the film too. The music as well. Just that quietness, the space, just the emptiness. The opening scene and the little computers, tick, 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 the clicking, the sound design in this movie is incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And to go so far away from like everybody at that time, since 77 was the original Star Wars, and people were still going back to the theater and watching that well into 78. And then that means that they were filming this at the height of Star Wars when it finally got released in 79. And so my second movie came out 11 years after Alien, and it is Die Hard, and I love the original first Die Hard. If we're talking about summer blockbuster films,
It's a Christmas movie.
yes, I love that too. You have to enjoy the fact that Bruce Willis, a guy who all we knew about him before was that he was in a TV show called Moonlighting, which was a great show. I loved the writing on that. Glenn Caron wrote that, who writes the series Bull today. But it was a hard sell for them to get Bruce Willis in there because they were like, well, this isn't he's not Kirk Douglas. He's not the stereotypical manly looking dude. He's this comedic guy who was a bartender before he got into acting. So
smirking all the time,
right? And so you have him in there. Then Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber as the ultimate villain, and just you talk about quotable. A lot of quotable lines in this movie, but also smart. So I love the fact that in this film that they say, hey, shoot the glass, because he's walking around barefoot. I'm like, yes, that's smart. I love that you put that in there. So here the criminals aren't goofs. They're not dummies. You're actually scared of them. There's like 12 of them, and then there's only one John McClane, you know. And here he is outnumbered, out everything, and he's having problems with his wife, Holly, in the movie. And then, of course, he befriends, what's his name?
Reginald L. Johnson.
Yes. and I love that, the police officer, Sergeant Powell. And then just to see how they had to shoot the explosions, right, from the building, because back then they didn't have the budgets that they have now. So it was like they had to shoot that several times and had to get just the perfect shot of the building with the helicopter scene that was going on. Like people didn't realize how hard it was for them to do it back then because they didn't quite have the techniques we have today, and it had to be done over a course of time. And then the film had to be edited in so many different ways just to make that one scene look right. And that was just the helicopter scene on the top of the building. But again, fun. Still holds up, and you still can't wait to hear Bruce Willis say "Yippee-ki-yay!"
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
That's it. And then I will say, number one, enjoyable summer movie. And again, yes, I know about Dark Knight. Yes, I know about The Empire Strikes Back. Yes, I know about New Hope. Yes, I know about all these other films. But because I've talked about them so much already, I have to give props to this one. And that is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Because I think this is one of the most underrated trilogies actually out there. When you think of the best trilogies, you go to Batman, the Christopher Nolan ones, you go to maybe the Avengers, maybe you go to Star Wars, right, before this latest tragedy. But silently and in the background, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, you have Andy Serkis playing Caesar and does a masterful role. And by the way, the CGI in this and the motion capture is top notch. Like you believe that those monkeys are actually really talking. I mean, there's no lip sync missing or anything like that at all. And then the villain, because you know how much I love villains, and Toby Kebbell playing, Koba. The tension between Caesar and Koba is just like, it's like Cain and Abel. And you're just sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is so tense. And then the trickery, the cleverness of Koba. Like I still love that scene where where he plays like he's just a dumb monkey walking up and they go, oh, look at the monkey. And then he grabs their gun and it's like, ta-da-da-da-da-da. And you're just like, whoa, that was extremely violent and evil. But it just showed you how Toby Kebbell playing Koba, right, was a perfect foil to Caesar, which Andy Serkis knocked that out the box. But if you haven't seen the Planet of the Apes trilogy, you need to watch it because it's up there with the top three. What do you think?
Matt Reeves did a sensational job with this trilogy, and not only the story of the apes and how they rose and so forth, but they're very thoughtful stories. They do make you think of how we treat people and each other, and how we're intolerant but yeah, even the last one, War for the Planet of the Apes, man, that movie blew me away. Some of the like I said, there's a lot of action in them, but there's also those quiet moments, the little girl riding on the back of the horse with the orangutan, and the flower, and how she was more broken up about one of the apes dying than her own father. I don't know if that was her father or just a guy that was with her, but she actually broke down and cried when the apes died. But just great work by Serkis for sure.
I love that. Absolutely. I loved it completely. So now, family, friends, and everyone watching, we're going to go here. We're going to add this feature to it today. This time around, we were doing just kind of great quarantine movies to watch, but I thought, what about the sounds? And we love soundtracks, right? And that's what that wiki is for, the soundtrack. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at our top three, which is pretty difficult to do, soundtracks to the movies as it relates to the movies. And so these are the ones that we're still bumping in rotation in our car now. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a movie that just came out. So Carlos, we'll start with you.
I'm glad you did this kind of a theme, because I think music and soundtracks songs used in movies make the movie better in a lot of ways. If I watched that documentary about Jaws, and Spielberg basically gave 50% of the credit to that movie to John Williams for his score in that movie.
Wow.
And yeah, it definitely enhanced the movie. Yeah, totally agree with that. So my three, the first one I'm going to go with is Inception, the great Hans Zimmer. Just this movie is monumental in its own right, but the music is just absolutely incredible. Some tracks in particular, the Mombasa, I love that little scene in the movie and the music that goes along with it. The Dream is Collapsing is probably one of the more recognizable pieces in that film. But of course, Time, that's just absolutely sublime piece of music by Zimmer, man, and it chokes me up listening to that sometimes when I hear it. Yeah. But yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Just from beginning to end, that whole soundtrack of music, the score. The second one I picked was the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American version, the David Fincher film. And the score is by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And I remember seeing this film in the theater and really noticing the ambiance of the music and the tone, and it's so atmospheric, and it's an unusual score because it's mostly a lot of ambient sound, like boom, boom. You hear humming and these pulses and things. And of course that Karen O remake of the Immigrant Song in the opening credits, they used it in the trailer as well, and it works so well for that trailer that they used it in the opening credits, and it's so good. There's one particular piece of music in it that always it really affects me emotionally. It's called "What If We Could," and it's used at the end of the film, and it's a really heartbreaking scene at the end. And that music, and it's basically just piano, basically, and
wow.
Or keyboard. But yeah. They did an absolutely amazing
right.
job.
It adds so much to the Fincher imagery of it that it just really just builds that mood.
And a lot of this
is fantastic.
This film takes place in winter, and even the music sounds wintry. It feels cold, because it's a lot of electronic music that he uses. And then the last one I'm talk about is Drive, the Nicholas Winding Refn film with Ryan Gosling. Cliff Martinez did the score for the film, but there's also some great tunes in the movie, songs that I'd never heard before. They may be more popular in Europe, possibly. This song Night Call, and another one called Under Your Spell. Love those songs. The way he uses them in the movie, Under Your Spell. It's kind of like they live in an apartment, and that music is just playing in the background, like they're having a party. Oscar Isaac's character has gotten out of prison, and they're kind of celebrating. And you hear this music. His girlfriend has gone out to the hall just to kind of escape the noise and just have a quiet moment to herself. But you hear that song in the background. And the Cliff Martinez score, Nicholas Winding Refn, the way he uses music and songs in his films is, I think it's top notch. I think it's great the way he uses music. If you ever seen this movie called The Neon Demon, that's another film where he uses music fantastically. The music is part of the film, really, in with his films, I believe. So yeah, those are the ones I picked.
Fine. Okay, Zach?
All right. So I chose
nice.
I chose three that kind of are what I feel three different soundtracks that kind of hit me where I live.
Yep.
The first one that I chose was the soundtrack to the film Swingers.
Love that film. Jon Favreau, Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, and I mean the soundtrack itself is just the epitome of cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, because it's all it's what you can do with very little budget.
Yeah.
Because these are all the tracks they pick are not necessarily chart toppers, but they were huge to huge to the mood of the film.
Yes.
Because you've got great swing from Big Bad Voodoo Daddy.
Yes.
You've got stuff like the Commodores. You've got Lawrence Welk, George Jones, Dean Martin. Just all these great kind of classic tones that you never would put anywhere.
Yeah.
But they fit so perfectly in the tone of the film because all of these songs are the epitome of cool, and this movie is all about the epitome of being cool while basically falling apart.
Yeah.
And all the songs just kind of fit into that track. And I mean, it's just a great look at the lousy side of LA.
Yeah.
And like I said, these are films you walk into any lounge and go to a jukebox and there they are. You hear them in the background, but they're just perfect. And it kind of started, it basically started a whole fashion trend in the early 90s of bringing back swing and things like that in that classic style.
Chain wallets.
Yeah, exactly.
And wasn't there a band in there that was playing a version of Staying Alive?
Yeah. Just that cheesy 2-person keyboard and drum. Basically, you walk into any little tiny little dive in LA, and there they are. So it's just a perfect tone setter. The second one that I chose is an event where basically the soundtrack exceeded the film, and that is Batman Forever. The movie itself is disposable. We don't even need to talk about Kilmer, but the songs in there are just fantastic. You Choose, Hold Me, Through Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, Kiss from a Rose, winning Grammys for Seal.
Come on,
and I mean, everyone on that, that massive attack track, the 100 Kids Captured by the Game, it still hits me where I live. You've got The Offspring, Nick Cave, Method Man, and just Brandy, just all these great kind of. It's what you can do with good licensing.
Yeah.
When you have the money to pay for it, you get really good stuff. And
I bet you most of those artists are on Warner Brothers labels. Right?
No, they all had to be.
Yeah.
But like I said, when you have that money and you have that power, you can really put something together. And
the musicians loved it because my new song's gonna be on the Batman soundtrack. Yeah,
Method Man doing a whole song about the Riddler. Sure, why not? Who else? Michael Hutchence doing a cover of Iggy Pop's "The Passenger." Just every great cover on there, and every great just kind of independent song. The Offspring, just all of it works for the time, and all of it works for the place. And like I said, the movie is lousy, but the soundtrack is just
I'll sit through the
Yes.
credits just to hear those songs, like Kiss from a Rose and stuff.
Yes, totally. The third one that I chose is one that it's an absolute character in the film, and that is, of course, everyone knows what I'm talking about. That is Pulp Fiction. Just every part of that soundtrack just works phenomenally. Quentin Tarantino, you don't have to always like his direction, but you absolutely cannot slight him in the songs that he picks for his stuff. It made Kool and the Gang relevant again. It made Al Green relevant again. It basically again takes all these great classic tracks and puts them wraps them around a film noir movie and just draws you in as a character because it sets the tone every step of the way. It's all picked audio. It's all hand-picked audio. Because like I said, there's no score to this film, but it's all soundtrack, and that's what kind of makes it really interesting, because what he did with Reservoir Dogs and the rotating radio 70s, now you're getting all these kind of songs you would always hear in the background,
sounds of the 70s,
and you never pick them up, but they all work in this film, and it really is a character in the film.
Yes,
because it perfectly sets the tone. Especially the Uma Thurman scenes.
I love it. I knew this. This is why I love doing this stuff, because I know we're all going to come in and give some great choices here. And so for me, I went with 3, and I got to say a honorable mention would be the soundtrack to Rocket Man, because Taron Egerton made sure that he did his cuts, and it wasn't just taking Elton John's greatest hits and putting it on a soundtrack and trying to call it that. And by the way, I'm gonna mention that right now since I brought it up. If your soundtrack is just everybody else's works, basically put together like a greatest hits, I don't give that as much credit as when people are creating new inputs to be put on a soundtrack specifically for the movie. So Guardians of the Galaxy is not here. Sorry if you love that. That's great. Those are great songs, but those are songs great. It had nothing to do with the movie.
It's a mixtape.
Yeah, it's a mixtape basically. But these,
literally,
are added to it. Now you can enjoy those for sure.
Right. Again, it's a character in the film.
So, but in this case, I'm going to give more of a thumbs up to originals. People saying, no, this is written specifically for a movie, because that's hard to do, to just write a movie. So I start with Black Panther, the Black Panther soundtrack, still bumping that. Now here's what you got to know about that. There's the way this album is put together. It's got the gritty hip hop rap to go with the character that we know that was Killmonger. Laced in between those are the sophisticated, beautiful R&B almost numbers, which speaks to Black Panther. So I love how they did that. So the odd numbered tracks are mostly the gritty ones that speak more to Killmonger's character, and the even numbered tracks speak towards Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. So some of my favorites, All Star, Pray For Me, these are the ones that were pretty popular. But I also like The Ways, which is a beautiful song. If you ever want to hear it, it almost sounds like a reggae song to a degree, that they have the steel drums in it. Beautiful song. I also liked Big Shot and Bloody Waters. There's blood in the water. And those are some incredible songs. So that soundtrack there, to me, I still bump in the car to this very day.
Right, and so we'll put together soundtrack by Kendrick Lamar, I think he falls in there kind of with the RZA and the way they put soundtracks together, but also going back to Prince and the original Batman soundtrack. Just these put together for the perfect sound, man.
Yes, absolutely. And then my number 2 soundtrack, again, this is perfect blend of movie about somebody who's a musician that the songs make sense about, even though this could be something separate than the movie, and this would be Purple Rain. Love that soundtrack. It is wonderful. I love Morris Day's Jungle Love, which was just a favorite. I love Take Me With You. That's a great, wonderful song. Oh my gosh, that song just makes me go crazy right now. Let's Go Crazy. I love that. And of course, When Doves Cry, and so many songs on this soundtrack will just do it for you. But if you want great 80s music as well that had a soul influence, had an influence of Jimi Hendrix, a mixture of Jimi Hendrix and I guess you could say Parliament Funkadelics is what Prince was kind of messing around with, right? So here's the metal of Jimi Hendrix with the guitar that you would hear in some of his songs, and then of course the pop funk sensibilities of the Parliament Funkadelics. So when you hear that sound in Vicky Vale on the Batman soundtrack, that funk sound that you hear, and it's also here in Take Me With You. Prince melded those two.
Right, and picks like Morris Day and the Time and stuff like that. Just it really is a great club album.
Yes, and I love I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star. I mean, how do you just not go listen to those songs right here and right now?
Right.
Just and you listen to those songs, and for me anyway, when I hear those songs, I see the performance, the film, the concert scene, the way he, the way Prince is just on stage and his movement and the energy he has, and man, what a thing it must have been to experience that. The Minneapolis clubs where he played, be in that audience and just watch this guy play for hours. Because this guy had so much energy, and his band was always, right there. He made sure they practice and get every single note perfect.
Yes. No, it was absolutely one of the most phenomenal albums ever. Even if it wasn't attached to a movie, it would have been a great album altogether. So that's crazy that it could, on its own, it's a great album, and then being as a part of the soundtrack to a movie.
And just about every one were on the charts.
Yeah, almost every one of them hit the charts somewhere. Yeah, and that's nuts. And then I guess my final number 1 would be, because I love 80s music, because there's something fun about 80s music. As much as I like my funk and I love my hip hop, I love my 80s. And so this goes to Sing Street. And this is a movie that was super way underrated. People haven't seen. Watch this movie, the innocence of just being young and being attracted to someone, and then you go and start a band because you told them you were in a band even though you weren't, because you were trying to, but then you tried to learn your instruments, and then you started to see it was a way out of the situation that you were in. So This one I love because it has two things going for it as well. Number one, it's got some of the old tracks. So it's got Duran Duran's Rio. It's got The Cure's In Between Days on it. And even The Clash, I Fought the Law. But the actors in this movie are also musicians. It wasn't actors trying to play musicians. These were musicians who could act. So their contributions, 6 of these songs on this album, are the songs that they were playing in the movie. And I love them. So there's a song called Up. If you haven't heard Up, that's an incredibly beautiful song. There was The Riddle of the Model, which is just that fun, funky song that just sounds 80s pop, right? And then there's a song called, gosh, I know I had it right here. There's a song called A Beautiful Sea and Brown Shoes. And they're just incredible. And they all tie into scenes in the movie that they kind of go into. So there's a song called Girls as well, where he's just not quite understanding this girl that he's in love with. And so that's a great original. And these are just fun, pop, airy, infectious, make you want to sing them even though you may not know all the words, but you want to because they're just that infectious. So I would say if you haven't heard the Sing Street soundtrack and you are a huge 80s fan, jump on this right away.
And that song should have won the Academy Award for Best Song.
It sure should have. And the album should have been nominated that year for Best Soundtrack, and they weren't even nominated for there. And this is also helped out by the lead singer from Maroon 5. Right, so yeah, this is incredible. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are our soundtracks. Those are our picks of the best summer movies. I'm sure you have yours. Tell us in the comments below. We would love to have that conversation with you. So now, as we're getting close to the end of the show, we're going to get into our shout outs. And so, Film Samurai, who you shouting out to?
All right, shout out to Matt and Nick down Austin Way, still enclosed in the coronavirus, whatever they want to call it. Joel, my cousin out in California, Stella, and all my pals on Twitter, my film people, always giving me good recommendations of films. And yeah, I get some good stuff to watch because of those guys. They're really well versed in films, and they watch stuff that I'd never even heard of. And then next thing you know, I'm watching it, and it's like, yeah, this is really great.
Film Twitter.
Yep, it's the best.
Very cool. How about you, K-Zach?
All right. I do want to go ahead and shout out to our guys who alternate Sundays with us, and that is Eddie Medina and Cole Houston, the hosts of Isle of Toys and the Rancor Pit, and, of course, Figment's The Unexplained Mysteries podcast, which should be coming back very soon. But like I said, we do want to shout out those guys, and we do also want to shout out the owners of DallasOnAir.com, which are Jansen Ray and Catherine Chensky, who have worked really hard to kind of get us back in the studio. We're grateful to them, and of course, we're grateful to them for giving us a home here every other Sunday.
Absolutely.
And of course, you can keep on tuning into us right here on DallasOnAir.com and find us on Facebook Live.
That's great. And I want to give a shout out to Mad Mel. She's got to be probably the #1 fan. Anybody else out there a bigger fan than that? Then go ahead and let us know about that. But I would say it's Mad Mel. She's always commenting. She's always talking. She always has ideas, and we love that
Thoughtful
for
comments,
that.
yep.
So thank you, Mad Mel. Also,
love you.
Absolutely. Sean Presley, we love you to death. Lauren Wiedauer, Tristan Frazier, Harry Thomas, Troy Ross, Michael Paul, Daniel Meza, good friend of the Samurai and I. And, of course, I do know Eddie Medina very well, and I know Cole Houston very well. They're good friends. Stephanie Crane, and then, of course, Scott, Laney, and Sandra, that family right there. We're very thankful that you watch. So with all that, we'll be back next time. We'll have something even more interesting next time, but we thank you for watching this. Make sure you comment, share, and like, and tell people about what it's like to have fulfillment. We're out of here.
All right, sayonara, everybody.
This is DallasOnAir.com.